Fever down! Bow, bow, bow! Also, would you guys look at this cute little denim set for Ozzy? In case you guys want to see him in it. Is that not so cute? Yes! Let's stand a dove column! Oh. Big dove!
The Indiana Fever just sent shockwaves through the WNBA and gave every Caitlin Clark and Fever fan a reason to scream with pride. With their superstar sidelined by injury, the rest of the squad didn't just rise to the occasion, they annihilated the Las Vegas Aces by 27 points. A team they hadn't beaten since 2019. Missing key players and facing refs who looked like they had Aliyah Wilson on speed dial, this was supposed to be a blowout, just not in Indiana's favor. But Kelsey Mitchell, Aliyah Boston, Sophie Cunningham, Lexi Hull, Ari McDonald, and Natasha Howard flipped the script. And what Mitchell said after the game. Just 3 words, but they captured the fire, the fight, and the magic of the moment perfectly.
We talked about, we just made sure that our energy was high, made sure that we were focused, because obviously we know Vegas is a great team and they're a team full of winners. And so for us, it's making sure that we turn the page off of a great Commissioner's Cup success, and then we have to be ready for Vegas, and we were.
McDonald back on the attack, lays it in. Mitchell, beautiful pass, 2 more for Boston. Oh, catch and shoot, connects. Here's Mitchell left wide open, and Mitchell catches in with authority. McDonald turns the corner and gets to the rim.
Imagine the worst-case scenario for any basketball team heading into a crucial game. You're up against the defending champs, led by the reigning MVP. Your superstar is injured. A veteran leader has jumped ship. And several key depth players? Competing overseas, thousands of miles away. That was the exact nightmare the Indiana Fever were living as they prepared to face the Las Vegas Aces.
No updates outside of she's out tonight. So just continuing to work and get her progress and make sure there's no setbacks.
With the start-stop nature of you guys this season to this point, having 5 in a row at home right here, what kind of opportunity do you view that as for the rest of your year?
I mean, I think it's a great opportunity for us. Sleep in your own beds for a while, play some games at home, in our home arena with this crowd. It is a great opportunity, but you also can't take the opportunity that you're playing at home for granted, right? We still got to come with that energy, that effort, that high attention to detail, intentional focus, and we've got to build.
Caitlin Clark's groin injury came at the worst possible moment. The superstar who had reshaped the entire identity of the Indiana Fever was now sidelined in street clothes. Clark wasn't just their top scorer, she was the engine, the floor general, the spark who elevated everyone around her. Her lightning speed, elite court vision, and playmaking had been the heartbeat of the team. Without her, the Fever were forced to reinvent their entire style of play. The squad that once thrived on fast breaks and 3-point bombs suddenly looked disoriented, scrambling to rediscover who they were without their leader.
With Caitlin and her status, just how did she look? How did she feel today during shoot-around? And is she making progress and getting closer playing?
She's making progress. I think, again, top of mind, I think I told you this afternoon, is just long-term. Making sure that we don't have any setbacks. Making progress and feeling good are 2 different things. And we want to make sure that she feels good. We want to make sure that she's confident. We want to make sure that we're not putting her in a position to have any setbacks. And that's the priority right now.
But that wasn't the only blow. Just when the Fever needed veteran leadership the most, Dana Bonner chose to walk away from the team. The timing couldn't have been worse. As they geared up for some of the biggest games of the season, Bonner's sudden departure left her teammates hanging. Already short on experienced players, the Fever were forced to scramble, reshuffling rotations and plugging holes in the roster. To make matters worse, Doris Dantas was overseas representing Brazil in the FIBA AmeriCup, stripping the team of much-needed frontcourt depth right when every body counted. Here's where things got really interesting. The Fever weren't just battling their own setbacks, they were about to go head-to-head with Aliyah Wilson, the reigning MVP, in the middle of yet another monster season. And this wasn't just any team. The Las Vegas Aces had been the WNBA's gold standard for years. They weren't just dominant, they were Indiana's personal nightmare. The Fever hadn't beaten them once since 2019. 5 straight years of losses. Total domination. The Aces owned the Fever, and everyone knew it. The sold-out crowd at Gainbridge Fieldhouse brought the energy, but even the most die-hard fans had to wonder how could a battered, short-handed Fever squad possibly hang in this fight. They were riding high after a thrilling win over Minnesota to claim their first Commissioner's Cup title, but this game felt different. This felt impossible. The odds were so stacked against them that most experts had already written them off before the opening tip. But what no one saw coming was how this perfect storm of adversity would spark something unforgettable. Sometimes, it takes being backed into a corner to discover your true power. And the Fever were about to find out just how far they could go when everyone counted them out. The numbers paint a harsh reality of what happens when a team loses its heartbeat. Without Caitlin Clark running the show, the Fever looked unrecognizable. The electrifying, fast-paced offense that had made them must-watch basketball vanished almost overnight. Gone were the quick transitions, the crisp ball movement, the explosive rhythm. In Clark's absence, the Fever's tempo slowed to a crawl like someone had hit pause on everything that made them dangerous. The pace of play dropped significantly without Clark's ability to push the ball up court after every rebound and steal. Games that used to fly by at breakneck speed suddenly felt sluggish. The Fever went from averaging over 90 points per game with Clark to struggling to reach 80 without her. Their offensive rhythm was completely broken. Players who had thrived in Clark's system looked lost trying to create their own shots. Without Clark's ability to push the ball up the floor after every rebound and steal, the Fever's pace slowed to a crawl. Games that once flew by with breakneck energy now felt heavy and stagnant. With Clark in the lineup, they were scoring over 90 points a night. Without her, they struggled to even crack 80. The offensive rhythm was gone. Players who had flourished in Clark's fast-flowing system suddenly looked out of sync, forced to manufacture shots they were used to receiving in stride. But that wasn't the only problem. The ball movement slowed to a crawl and became painfully predictable. Caitlin Clark's elite vision and passing had elevated everyone around her, threading needles and finding open teammates in ways that kept defenses guessing. Without her, the offense grew one-dimensional. Players held onto the ball too long, forcing shots that weren't there. The smooth, unselfish basketball they'd played with Clark devolved into isolation sets and desperation heaves. No one felt the impact more than Aliyah Boston. The dominant center, who once controlled the paint in college, was barely touching the ball. Her game depends on a point guard who can feed her in the post, someone who understands timing, angles, and spacing. Without Clark setting the table, Boston found herself drifting around the perimeter, far from the low block where she's most dangerous. Here's where things took a turn. Without Clark on the floor, opposing teams cracked the code on how to defend the Fever. They clogged the paint, daring Indiana to shoot from outside, confident there was no consistent three-point threat to fear. Defenders swarmed, forcing other players to generate their own offense, knowing Clark's deep range and floor spacing magic were gone. Against elite teams like the Aces, the Fever looked painfully average. The identity they'd built was slipping, and scoring from multiple players became a struggle. But Kelsey Mitchell had been waiting for this exact moment. She had 3 powerful words in mind, words that would define what was coming next. As tip-off approached and the energy inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse reached a fever pitch, everything was about to change. Here's where things took a turn. Without Clark on the floor, opposing teams cracked the code on how to defend the Fever. They clogged the paint, daring Indiana to shoot from outside, confident there was no consistent three-point threat to fear. Defenders swarmed, forcing other players to generate their own offense, knowing Clark's deep range and floor spacing magic were gone. Against elite teams like the Aces, the Fever looked painfully average. The identity they'd built was slipping, and scoring from multiple players became a struggle. But Kelsey Mitchell had been waiting for this exact moment. She had 3 powerful words in mind, words that would define what was coming next. As tip-off approached and the energy inside Gainbridge Fieldhouse reached a fever pitch, everything was about to change. This win changed everything for the Indiana Fever. Beating Iowa Wilson and the defending champs wasn't just a statement, it was a turning point. The chemistry, confidence, and resilience they showed will carry into the rest of the season. Kelsey Mitchell, Aliyah Boston, and the entire squad proved they can thrive under pressure and step up when it matters most. The Fever are no longer just Caitlin Clark and company. They're a legit team built for long-term success. Now picture Clark returning to this battle-tested group. These players just proved they can win without her, now add her elite scoring and playmaking back into the mix. The result? A team that's not just exciting, but truly dangerous. If you're rocking with the Fever, drop a comment. I've got the Fever. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a moment. Click the video on your screen now. We'll see you in the next one.